Every single year, the global corporate world essentially sets fire to $2.3 trillion.
Which is just a mind-boggling number.
Right. I mean, 2.3 trillion, that is the staggering amount of capital wasted globally on digital transformation and AI projects that just outright fail, or they stall, or, they never actually deliver their promised value.
Yeah, they just become these massive money pits.
Exactly. And think about that number for a second. It's kind of like, well, you wouldn't just buy Olympic-level gym equipment, drop it right in the middle of your living room, and then expect to get a six-pack just by looking at it, right?
No, I mean, that would be ridiculous.
But for some reason, when executives step into the boardroom, they apply exactly that logic to enterprise tech. They buy the platform, they leave it in the proverbial living room, and then they wonder why the company hasn't magically transformed.
It really is the ultimate diagnostic illusion. We look at this incredibly sophisticated piece of software, and we just assume it's going to impose order on a chaotic organization.
But instead, what usually happens is the technology simply magnifies the existing dysfunction. It just creates highly expensive, automated chaos.
Automated chaos. I love that phrasing, even if it is a bit depressing. So whether you are prepping for a major strategy meeting or you're just the ultimate learner who is insanely curious about why massive corporate tech projects keep imploding, this deep dive is custom tailored for you.
Absolutely.
We're looking at a towering stack of fresh 2025 and 2026 data today. We're synthesizing reports from Deloitte, IBM, PwC, McKinsey, Bain, MetricStream, plus some really fascinating field insights from Data Sentinels and Melting Spot.
A lot of ground to cover.
It is. And our mission here is to figure out the actual mechanisms behind this massive tech paradox. Like, why are we pouring trillions into AI only for it to completely fail? And more importantly, what are the top 20% of successful companies doing differently behind the scenes to actually see a real return on investment?
And, the through line in all these reports is unmistakable. The solution to these astronomical tech failures has almost nothing to do with writing better code or, buying faster processor.
Wait, really? It's not a tech issue?
Not at its core, no.
Yeah.
The bottleneck is entirely human behavior and organizational governance.
Okay, let's unpack this, because the baseline failure rates are genuinely terrifying. We were looking at recent studies from McKinsey and BCG, and they show a baseline 70% failure rate for digital transformations.
Yeah, and it gets worse.
It does. Bain's comprehensive 2024 analysis puts the failure rate even higher, at 88%. I mean, you would think numbers like that would cause a massive pullback in spending.
You would think so, but the spending is actually accelerating.
It's accelerating.
Yeah. The latest Deloitte survey data on AI investment shows that 85% of organizations actually increased their budget in the last 12 months.
Wow.
And 91% plan to increase it again this year.
Yeah.
So they are just doubling down on the investment without fixing the underlying machinery of how that investment is deployed.
But the return on that investment is virtually non-existent in the short term, right? Because the Deloitte numbers show that only 6% of organizations see a payback in under a year.
Right, just 6%. And that timeline stretches even further as the technology itself gets more complex. For most standard AI implementations, companies are waiting 2 to 4 years to see real ROI.
That's a long time in the corporate world.
It is. And when you move into advanced agentic AI...
Which is the systems that can act autonomously, right?
Exactly. Systems that are autonomously executing multi-step tasks across different software platforms. For those, it takes 3 to 5 years to realize value, because integrating a system that can take actions on its own requires an absolute overhaul of your security permissions, your data silos, your departmental workflows.
Basically everything.
Everything.
Which exposes a massive logical gap. I mean, if the underlying technology itself, whether that's like Microsoft Azure or a robust CRM like Dynamics 365, or the latest foundational generative AI models, if those are functioning perfectly well in a vacuum, then the failure has to be happening at the layer above the technology.
What's fascinating here is how clearly the Data Sentinels research maps out that exact layer of failure. They call it the governance gap.
The governance gap.
Yeah. When you do a postmortem on a failed digital transformation, you almost always find 3 specific structural pieces completely missing from the architecture. First, there's no named owner with real authority.
Oh, interesting.
Right. You might have a really enthusiastic project manager, but enthusiasm is not authority.
Right. If the person driving the project can't actually compel a department head to change their workflow, the project is basically dead on arrival.
Precisely. And the second missing piece is what they call the solution in search of a problem syndrome.
Oh, I've seen this one. The technology was purchased before the business problem was actually defined.
Exactly that. An executive reads a magazine article about a shiny new AI platform, buys a site license, and then basically goes wandering around the operations floor looking for a process to retrofit the software onto.
Yeah, that never works out well.
Never. And the third missing piece is the complete absence of exit criteria. Nobody sits down at the kickoff meeting and asks, well, what specific metrics will tell us this is failing, and how do we pull the plug?
So without that kill switch, bad projects just quietly accumulate budget year after year. They turn into zombie initiatives.
Exactly, just wandering the halls, eating money.
Okay, let me challenge the whole premise of this governance gap for a second, though. I hear the argument about needing a named owner and strict criteria, but honestly, isn't that just a convenient excuse for IT departments who bought clunky, unhelpful software?
How do you mean?
Well, if an AI tool actually made an employee's job significantly easier, they would just use it. We see this all the time. If leadership is too bogged down in defining ownership and writing exit criteria, employees just bypass them. I mean, everyone has a highly capable generative AI right on their phone right now.
That's true.
So if the official channels move too slowly, the workforce just solves the problem themselves, right?
This raises a really important question, and you are highlighting the exact tension pulling these companies apart right now. The ISMS online data shows that 37% of employees are actively using unauthorized generative AI tools to do their daily work.
37%.
Yes. And this isn't just a minor IT annoyance anymore. This is a massive shadow AI threat.
Because they are uploading proprietary company data into public models.
Precisely. An employee who's just trying to be efficient might feed a highly confidential client contract into an unauthorized web-based AI just to summarize it, and boom, they've instantly created a severe data breach.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's a nightmare.
And beyond the immediate security threat, there are massive compliance realities. Take the EU AI Act, for instance, which is a regulatory reality we have to look at impartially. It imposes strict frameworks on how AI systems are monitored, documented, and deployed.
Right, the documentation is huge.
Looking at this strictly as a functional business reality, companies face catastrophic financial penalties if they cannot prove exactly how AI is being used in their organization. Shadow AI makes that mandated compliance literally impossible.
And I guess even if you manage to lock down the shadow AI, taking an officially approved AI tool and slapping it on top of a bad internal workflow is a recipe for disaster anyway. There is a brilliant mechanical insight here from Maven. They say, technology doesn't fix what isn't understood.
Yes, if your global supply chain is fundamentally broken because your European division uses a totally different naming convention than your Asian division, an AI cannot fix that.
It doesn't know what to do with it.
Right. If you put an advanced algorithm on top of a siloed, chaotic process, you aren't fixing the process. You are simply automating the dysfunction, which means you start making terrible decisions at the speed of light.
So then the typical corporate reflex kicks in. Companies are terrified of shadow AI causing data breaches, and they're terrified of official AI automating chaos. So their immediate response is to slam on the brakes and lock everything down behind layers of heavy bureaucracy.
Exactly.
But doesn't that inherently kill the exact innovation and agility they're spending billions of dollars to achieve?
The IBM data completely shatters that assumption, actually. We have to fundamentally flip the script on how we view corporate governance. Governance is not a brake pedal, it is a steering wheel.
A steering wheel.
Yeah. Organizations that implement strong, centralized AI governance actually report that 27% of their overall AI efficiency gains come directly from that oversight.
Wow, 27%.
And functionally, those organizations see a 34% higher operating profit from their AI initiatives compared to companies operating in a free-for-all.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting, because these reports don't just give us the high-level theory, they actually provide the practical frameworks to build that steering wheel. Like, Data Sentinels outlines the space test for evaluating any new AI tool before it ever touches a company network.
Ah, yes, the space test.
SPACE. Does it solve a real problem? Is it practical? Is it accurate? Is it compatible? And is it ethical?
Let's break down how that actually functions in a procurement meeting. Practical means looking at the user interface.
Sure.
Does this tool require an employee to click through 6 different screens to get an answer, or does it integrate natively into their dashboard?
Right, because if it's annoying to use, they won't use it.
Exactly. And accurate forces the team to define the acceptable hallucination rate. If it's summarizing internal IT tickets, maybe a 2% error rate is fine. But if it's generating medical dosages, the tolerance is 0.
Absolutely 0.
Right. And ethical in this context is a strict risk and compliance metric. Are we inadvertently feeding personally identifiable customer information into a model that uses it for training?
Right.
If a vendor's tool cannot pass all 5 of those specific filters, you reject it. It prevents the purchase of that metaphorical gym equipment.
We actually have incredible real-world case studies showing this rigorous foundational approach in action. Look at First Quantum Minerals. They managed to unlock $10 million in working capital in just 12 months.
10 million, that's huge.
And the mechanism they used wasn't some flashy bleeding-edge predictive AI. They achieved that by doing the unsexy, grueling work of fixing their data foundation and establishing strong governance over their existing systems.
Because they realize you cannot build a predictive model if the inventory data coming out of their Zambian operations is formatted completely differently than the data coming out of their sites in Panama. Clean, standardized data must precede AI. It is the absolute prerequisite.
Then you look at Petrobras in Brazil, who took a highly advanced approach, but kept the human element completely at the core. They built an AI assistant called Petronemo, specifically to help their engineers parse through 30 years of dense historical maintenance logs.
Which is a massive task.
Massive! But the genius of the deployment wasn't just the algorithm. They knew that if they just handed the AI to the engineers wouldn't trust it. So they put 400 human reliability engineers on the loop.
On the loop? That phrase is the defining operational shift here.
Mm-hmm.
The AI isn't making autonomous decisions to shut down a pipeline.
Right.
The AI scans the 30 years of logs, it flags a potentially decaying valve based on historical patterns, and then it surfaces that recommendation to the human engineer.
And then the human decides.
Exactly. The veteran engineer reviews the context, verifies the logic, and officially approves the work order. That human oversight is the steering wheel in action, and it is projected to save Petrobras $3.7 million by 2029.
But getting 400 veteran engineers to actually adopt a new digital workflow brings us to the hardest part of this entire puzzle. You can have the cleanest data architecture in the world, and you can have a flawless governance framework. But if the employees on the ground refuse to change their daily habits, you still become part of that 88% failure statistic.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the McKinsey report quantifies this perfectly. They found that organizations that heavily invest in cultural change management have success rates 5.3 times higher than those that only focus on the technical rollout.
5.3 times higher.
Yes. 74% of enterprises report struggling with outdated legacy technology. But the real anchor dragging these massive projects down into the mud is human change fatigue.
Which makes total sense. I mean, employees have survived a decade of exhausting, disruptive software rollouts that continually force them to relearn how to do their jobs. They are completely burned out on new tools.
Completely burned out.
And traditional corporate software training is fundamentally broken. It is the equivalent of, like, pulling over on a busy highway just to read a dense 500-page paper manual for a spaceship while the countdown sequence has already started. It takes you completely out of the flow of what you were trying to do.
That's a great way to put it. And the melting spot data explains the mechanics of why that traditional approach fails. Traditional learning management systems, or LMS, force an employee to stop their actual work, log into a separate portal, and watch a generic 20-minute video about a software interface.
And by the time you're done watching, you've forgotten it anyway.
By the time they get back to their actual task, they've completely forgotten the specific steps. Modern software adoption requires moving away from the paper map and moving to a GPS model.
Which is what?
In-app learning platforms.
Oh, so you deliver the help right at the exact point of need while their hands are still on the steering wheel.
Precisely. If an employee is struggling to generate a specific report in the new CRM, the platform recognizes the hesitation and surfaces a micro-tutorial overlay right on that specific screen, guiding them click by click.
That is so much better.
Organizations utilizing this contextual, in-app learning are seeing internal user adoption happen 40 to 60% faster.
Wow. It fundamentally changes the relationship between the IT department and the workforce. The IT Convergence Report maps out this transition nicely. Successful companies are completely abandoning the old project mindset where IT installs a software package, declares victory, and just walks away.
Right, the drop and run.
Yeah. They're shifting to a product and platform mindset where the technology is treated as a living, breathing ecosystem that constantly evolves based on continuous user feedback.
And to safely manage a constantly evolving ecosystem, you have to restructure your entire risk operating model. EWC details a highly effective framework for this called the 3 lines of defense.
Okay, what are the 3 lines?
So the first line is your operational teams, the IT developers and data scientists who are actually building and deploying the tech. They are responsible for building it securely from day one.
Right, so they don't just build it fast and let compliance clean up the mess later.
Exactly. The second line of defense is your dedicated risk, legal, and compliance teams. They don't build the tools, they establish the guardrails, they define the data privacy rules, and they actively govern that first line.
Okay, makes sense.
And finally, the third line is an independent internal audit team. They come in completely detached from the build process to assure that the first 2 lines are actually doing their jobs effectively. It distributes accountability across the entire organization.
And getting that distributed accountability locked in is an urgent race against the clock right now, because we aren't just governing simple chatbots anymore. The nature of the AI we are deploying is fundamentally shifting. It is waking up. We're moving beyond systems that just generate a polite email draft or, summarize a PDF into systems that take autonomous action across multiple platforms.
This is the transition into the agentic AI era. According to the combined data from MetricStream and Deloitte, agentic AI refers to systems that don't wait for a human prompt to execute a single task.
Right.
You give an AI agent a broad goal like resolve this customer billing dispute, and the agent autonomously reasons through the problem. It plans the necessary steps, logs into your email client to read the complaint, cross-references your billing software, calculates the refund, logs into your payment gateway to issue the credit, and updates the CRM file. All without human intervention.
They are essentially operating as autonomous digital employees.
Yes, and the implications for corporate risk are massive. 87% of leaders surveyed expect these AI agents to completely reshape corporate governance within the next year alone.
Within a year, wow.
If your company does not have its data silos and access permissions strictly governed right now, an autonomous agent will multiply your liabilities exponentially. It will rapidly execute mistakes across your entire tech stack.
It totally redefines our relationship with the machine.
Right.
We talked about Petrobras putting engineers on the loop. That is the new reality. We are shifting away from being in the loop, where the human does the manual labor and uses software as a passive tool.
Right.
We are moving on the loop, where the AI executes the labor, and the human's primary job is to supervise, verify, and govern the outcomes.
Which is exactly why boardroom dynamics are undergoing a massive revolution right now.
Oh.
The Diligent report analyzing 2026 board trends shows that corporate directors are finally waking up to this reality. They are moving away from passive oversight where they just sit back and nod along to a rosy PowerPoint presentation from the Chief Information Officer.
Yeah, those days are over.
They're shifting to active governance, risk, and compliance, or GRC.
Because the stakes are simply too high for a board of directors to be passive.
The liabilities are existential at this point. Boards are now mandating 72-hour crisis protocols for major tech and cyber incidents.
What does that look like in practice?
That means if an agentic AI goes rogue or a critical data breach occurs, the organization has exactly 72 hours to quarantine the system, revert to manual operational fallbacks, and formally notify the relevant regulatory bodies.
That is a tight window.
Very tight. Furthermore, boards are no longer accepting vague employee sentiment surveys as proof of successful digital transformation. They are demanding to see raw, measurable AI usage telemetry. They want to know exactly which departments are using the tools, what the specific error rates are, and how much time is actually being saved.
Which brings this entirely back to you, the listener. Think about the dynamics in your own workplace right now. Do you have a genuine speak-up culture? If you spot an AI hallucination buried in a financial report, or you notice a new automated process is actually slowing your team down, do you feel safe raising your hand and reporting it?
It's a crucial question.
Because the Diligent data reveals a highly counterintuitive metric. A high volume of usage on internal reporting hotlines is actually a massive positive signal.
If the hotline is ringing, it means trust exists within the organization. It means employees care enough about the company to actively try and steer the ship away from the iceberg.
Provided, of course, that leadership actually closes the loop, investigates the report, and fixes the broken process.
Exactly. Silence is the metric that should truly terrify a board of directors.
Really? Silence.
Yes. If nobody is reporting problems with a massive new tech rollout, it doesn't mean the rollout was flawless. It means the official tools are quietly failing, and shadow AI is thriving in the dark because employees don't trust leadership enough to tell them the truth.
So what does this all mean for us moving forward? We have covered a staggering amount of ground today, pulling from thousands of pages of research across all these different sources.
If we distill this massive stack of reports down to its core mechanism, the takeaway is clear. Digital transformation fails the exact moment an executive treats it as an IT upgrade.
Right.
It is not an IT upgrade. It is a fundamental overhaul of human behavior and organizational governance.
You cannot skip the unsexy foundational work. Clean, standardized data has to precede any AI implementation. And we have to permanently kill the corporate myth that governance and compliance slow down innovation.
Yes, please.
Because the IBM data proved the exact opposite. Structured governance is the steering wheel that gives your company the stability and confidence to accelerate speed and profitability.
It allows you to drive fast because you know the brakes and the steering actually work.
Mm-hmm.
But I do want to leave you with one final provocative thought to mull over.
Okay, let's hear it.
We've talked extensively about the technology today, but let's look at the human timeline. The Deloitte research projects that 39% of the core skills required for daily corporate work will fundamentally change by the year 2030.
39%. That is practically tomorrow in corporate planning cycles.
It is happening right now as agentic AI matures and takes over the actual execution of our daily tasks. The drafting of contracts, the writing of code, the complex scheduling, the heavy data processing. Your future value as a professional is going to shift entirely.
How so?
Your worth will no longer be measured by the sheer volume of output you can produce. It will be measured by how effectively you can govern those autonomous systems, how sharply you can supervise their logic, and most importantly, how well you can ask the right questions.
Wow.
When the machine sitting on your desktop instantly has all the answers, the most valuable person in the room is the one who knows which complex business problem is actually worth solving in the first place.
That is a phenomenal reframing of the future of work. Your value shifts from having the answers to architecting the right questions. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the sources today. I highly encourage you to walk into your office tomorrow or jump on your next strategy call and look at the technology ecosystem around you through this new lens. Are you actively building the steering wheel to guide your team forward, or did your company just buy that Olympic-level gym equipment to let it gather dust in the living room? Until next time, keep asking the right questions.